If you're willing to come and sit a spell, I bet you the creep has a tale to tell. Here's your spooky spot on the FigBiz Creepshow, The Creep. The Creep returns, just days after his debut animated special on Shudder. FigBiz's officially licensed action figures are the perfect addition to any collection, inspired by the ultimate era of Saturday morning cartoons. The hype for now, the fright for later. Before we get a closer look at the FigBiz Creepshow, The Creep, let's take this ghoulish tape measure of mine to figure out how tall the Creep stands. If it goes right to the very top of his hood, then the Creep stands about 4.5 inches in height, or roughly about 10.5 centimeters tall. And the first thing we'll have a look at, pardon my devilish chuckle, the first thing we'll have a look at, though, is the FigBiz clear display stand that comes included with the Creep. You can see in this case that they've actually embossed or indented the name FigBiz into the stand. I think that's rather clever. There's a clear stand peg as well that's going to fit to the underside of the figure's feet. I actually feel in a case like this that the Creep needs a display stand. Because the way his legs are sculpted, and because he doesn't have any ankle articulation to speak of, the figure is known for falling over all the time. I hope that it's not going to scare you in the process. So yeah, I would definitely use the display stand. It's simple. It's easy. All you do is just take that and attach it onto the bottom of his feet. Wow, that was easy, wasn't it? I told you. You never believe me. For the rest of the figure's accessories, I actually had to do a little bit of searching. I checked both online where many of this figure is being advertised at. Actually, I did find this figure over on Entertainment Earth's website, if in case you guys are interested. I'll provide the link down below in the video description. But several of the sites actually misinform at least the included accessories. The packaging actually indicates, well, I'm going to go by the packaging of what the things that come include with the figure. And you can correct me if I'm wrong if you like. First of which, the figure comes included with a can of beer. I don't know if you can actually even make that out. Do I even have it facing the right way? I don't know if I had it facing the right way. He has a little tiny can of beer with a little actual tab on the top. Careful not to shake this because you would not want to have foaming beer everywhere. Of course, that would just destroy this backdrop altogether. But you can take the beer and you can fit it into the Creep's hand. At least the plastic, at least for the hand, is soft enough. It's quite easy, actually, to fit the beer in his hand while still holding him onto the display stand. Without the display stand, lost cause altogether. The figure also comes included with, now, based on the packaging, it says this is the Harrows. If anybody has any idea, do let me know down below. It almost looks like a leech. For a second, I actually thought it was the spinal cord, but that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. First of which, even though there's a hole on the bottom of it, I'm guessing it's more of a mouth. Doesn't fit at all to the bottom of the head. So spinal cord, we can rule that out altogether. But again, like the packaging calls this Harrows. I'm willing to go with that. It has no articulation to speak of, but it does certainly look like some sucking leech. Suck onto your face if you're not careful. And of course that can also fit into the Creep's hands. I'm noticing a trend. The trend kind of stops right there, unfortunately. The figure also comes included, careful I don't drop this, with a tiny gypsy coin. I'm sure it's one of many coins, but careful that you don't lose this, and careful that the gypsy doesn't come to claim. It's actually a genie's coin. Why did I call it gypsy? Genie's coin. Little tiny coin. So easily lost. So easily lost. We'll put it down to the side. The figure also comes included with the finger. Careful it doesn't touch you. It actually looks less like a finger and more like something that would have come from a giant insect. And I'd hate to see the remaining 5 of these that would be still attached to the body. It is a finger, I guess, as best as I could describe it. It kind of looks almost like a twig. And it's been colored here almost like on a very off-colored green. This falls into that category of things that don't really fit well into the Creep's hands. It's very small, and there really isn't a place, unfortunately, that can fit while he's still holding the beer, of course. I guess you could kind of wedge it in between like he's almost smoking a cigar, but if you were just to put it in his hand, two things would happen. First, it would fall to the floor. I guess three things. Second, you would go looking for it. Third, you wouldn't find it and you'd start crying and running upstairs and slamming the door and maybe even saying, I hate life. I don't know. The figure also comes included with, just move everything out of the way here. It comes also included with a haunted head. Minus the sound effects. That's just me adding sound effects. I mean, it's nicely sculpted, right down to the fact that the blood on the severed stump is still there. It looks like it's freshly still cut. Somebody just cut this head? Anybody? Funny enough, nobody's putting up their hand. Can anybody claim this severed head? Oh, actually, somebody just left the room. Maybe it's his. I do like the way they've got the eyes glowing. These peepers done in white, outlined nicely in a dark black. He's missing a nose, so he can't smell anything. Of course, he does have an open mouth. Doesn't really fit into the hand. I mean, you're going to really have to pry the hand open in order for it to fit in there, and it just barely does the job. You can see right there. All the while I'm doing this, the figure is still on the stand. We're going to talk more about that in a second. And the last thing that comes included with the figure, and probably my favorite thing that comes included with it, is the monkey's paw. I don't think it comes included with a free frogurt or your choice of toppings. That's a Simpsons reference. But a monkey's paw that you can make wishes from. Now, you never know what wish you're going to get. Because while you may think you're going to be wishing for one thing, the monkey's paw will give you a twist. And you'll end up getting something else you weren't expecting. And with each wish, the finger will bend down. Well, we've all seen the Simpsons episode. The monkey's paw, again, my favorite thing that comes included with the figure. And likely the thing I'm going to have displayed in it. Unfortunately, though, again, going back to the same problem, the hand just doesn't hold it. Let's try, actually, the beer hand. It holds it a little bit better. Yes, we're going to have the monkey's paw in the other hand. Maybe not for the duration of this review, but it's going to come back to it. Maybe for final looks, I'll bring it back. I'm going to put that to the side. We'll, of course, remove the display stand and move it off to the side. Getting a closer look, though, at the creep. It's not a bad-looking figure. I have more problems, not with the sculpt necessarily, but more to the paint. While I do like the face, I think so much gets lost by the fact that they've used a really muddy, like all of the color really, not even just the muddy brown, because that would be the obvious one, right? Like muddy, we talk about mud, he's talking about the brown, he's talking about the brown, no. Everything really on this figure is really muddy. It's not that they've applied it so much, so heavily, that all the features get lost. But because they've used so many dark colors on the face, it's hard to really be able to pinpoint those peepers on Creeper's face because they're so dark. And the sockets around it are also really dark as well. Now, we go to the source material. The colors are quite good because they're gray and you got the green and all that. But there needs to be some dark colors added in there as well, because without that, the face features, I find, wow, that's a lot of Fs, got lost altogether. I mean, again, it's good, but I think there's so much opportunity where they could have really fixed the face sculpt by just adding necessary darker colors. Because there's just a lot of dark green. There's a lot, well, muddier swamp green. There's muddy gray. And then there's just muddy red in there. Everything is really muddy. He's talking about the brown. No, I'm not talking about the brown. One thing also about the paint, too, I've noticed, you may already see a couple of these, they've painted the joints on the elbows. It results in every time, at least a few couple of times I've moved the arm back and forth, it's started to flake the paint off. And you can kind of see a little bit of the white coloring underneath that. I'm sure no more is going to flake off, but it's something, obviously, the first couple of times you do it, you're going to notice all this little whiteness, I guess the coloring of the plastic underneath it. Now, he's wearing the cloak. The cloak is nicely done. I like the way it's kind of tattered at the bottom. It looks like a haunting tree. Even if you look at the back, and if I was to put the arms down, doesn't it kind of look, maybe if I did it like that, doesn't it look like a haunting tree? Yeah, I knew I wasn't the only one that thought that. The coloring, again, like you got the brown, but because the coloring, my guess is that the plastic color was probably like a dark black. You see all the black sort of peering through, seeping through like somebody just got a wound, you know? You're like just standing, having a conversation with somebody, all of a sudden, like just this stain starts developing. Certainly hope it's not blood. If anything, like pen would be fine, because you could easily just say, you know, you got pen leaking through your pocket. Oh, geez, thank you. As opposed to, hey, by the way, you've just been shot. Oh, really? I didn't even notice I was shot. But that's sort of what's happening here. Not that you shot, but the fact that the coloring of the plastic peeks through. But so much of it is so muddy. I know, that's the word for the day today, is muddy. He does have some decent articulation that we'll talk more about in a second, but the one thing that he unfortunately lacks in, because his legs are always on an angle like this. I'm doing my best not to get my fingers in the way of things, but see how his legs are angled like this. You may think to yourself, well, can't you just straighten out his legs? No, you can't. The legs sort of go like this. And it really doesn't make for the most stable footing. I mean, he does have at least flat feet, but to put him down on a stand, like put him down on his own, yeah, sure enough, now I'm looking like a liar. But when you put him down, you have to put him down in just the right way, that if his leg is just slightly off to the side, now see, all of a sudden he's still standing fine. Monkey's paw, I knew you would do me in, because I kept saying, I really wish that this figure's going to stand. That's exactly what I ended up getting. Now I look like a fool. But yeah, the thing about this figure is because he does have an ankle articulation. Normally, though, when I was doing earlier looking at this figure, the figure had some difficult time to stand. And sure enough, now is okay. See, now, if you have the leg not quite, you kind of have to really have the leg wide enough. And even then, see, this is more what I was talking about. The way the body is curved like this, it does result in having the figure falling over, or he leans really back heavy. And he's probably going to fall over at some point soon. For the articulation on this guy, it's limited here, but it makes up for it at least in other places. So, like, you can't do anything with his head whatsoever. It's all just one continuous mold from the top of the hood all the way down to the bottom of his cloak here. At least to the arms, the credit there is, at least that the arms do rotate all the way around. You can take as well the arms and move them out so he can give a nice big hug. Has a single hinge only on the elbows, but you can rotate also those forearms back and forth. And while he doesn't possess any wrist articulation, he at least has some decent articulation for the tops of his thighs. Why they need to even be articulated up there is beyond me. I mean, they probably could have just easily molded the legs straight like a closed peg. And if anything, only added knee articulation, because even just to move his legs out is where you off-kelter. See, now this is what I'm talking about. You start off-keltering the figure, and that's when the figure falls over. The figure does have, like I said, the double hinge on the knee, but it almost seems like null and void, because really, what are you going to bend? Even if you bend the knee back and forth, he's got the front of the cloak and the back of the cloak sort of sandwiching the bread on either side, and there's really no way you're going to be able to move the leg other than this. I mean, yeah, I guess to have the leg being able to give a wider stance, but I almost feel like in a case like this, put all the articulation in the shoulders and in the elbows, and maybe if anything, just leave the articulation off altogether in the legs, because still, at the end of the day, when it comes to displaying this figure, I'm going to have to still rely on the clear display stand to attach to the bottom of his feet. And that certainly looks a lot better and certainly a lot more stable. The things I do like about the Creep is that he's decently sculpted for what at least I can make out for his face. A lot of the face sculpt unfortunately gets lost by the way they painted it. Not again by so much extra paint being added, but just by the idea that if anything, they could have added some darker coloring of a black or something in there just so the face would have stood out, especially the eyes the most. The mouth, the teeth, the tongue, and the eyes are so like muddy and clouded almost because there's no darker color added in there. That's the only thing that is a bit of a detriment to this figure. He also has fun for the fact that he comes with as many accessories that he has, but even in closing thoughts, just before we get the final looks of the figure, let's get the monkey's paw in his hand. Offering it up to anybody that's a well-wisher, hoping that they can grant some, or have some of their wishes granted at least. Probably not a good idea. If you've seen anything about the monkey's paw or heard anything of the monkey's paw, whether they're offering free Frogurt with free toppings or not, I would just say pass altogether. Don't get yourself the monkey's paw. You're only asking yourself for trouble. In the end, the FigBiz Creepshow, the Creep, turned out to be, well, just okay. It's an all-right, passable Creep, but I think the biggest thing that's the detriment to this figure is not the fact that the company applied too much paint, but it's the color of paint that the company decided to use. When you're dealing with just the Creep alone, you've got a lot of grayish-looking greens. And then if you're going to use an accent color of gray on top of that, other than just the white of his teeth and the pink of his tongue, I had a real tough time actually trying to figure out what was going on with his face. His eyes, unfortunately, just get lost altogether because there's not enough bright colors of the eyes against the backdrop of so much swampy colors. And it's consistent, really, unfortunately, when you're looking at the rest of the cloak, too. You leave away from the green and you go to the cloak, and it's more of the same. There's no real rich browns. It's just a lot of bland browns on top of bland, kind of grayish or black plastic or whatever they would have used underneath the body. There's nothing really popping on this figure. And again, this is one of those cases where it's not a fault of the figure where too much paint is ruining the sculpt. I think the paint applied is proper. It's the colors, again, that the company decided to use for it. Now, obviously, when I did see this figure online and I ordered this over on Entertainment Earth's website, the image obviously looked a lot better than what it did physically in hand. And that's usually always the case whenever you're ordering something. Images that you see online are usually the promotional images The actual figure of the creep in hand, as you saw in this video, is just okay. I do like at least the accessories that he came included with. Some of the accessories I could recognize. Some of them, for example, like the genie coin I call the gypsy coin. But at least he comes included with some pretty cool looking accessories. And for me, at least to display this guy on the shelf, he's going to be displayed with the monkey's paw. Just going to make sure I don't make any wishes around the monkey's paw. If you guys are interested and would like to get the Creepshow Creep for yourself, I'll certainly provide the link down below in the video description. You can head on over to Entertainment Earth's website and order this guy today. Maybe for a video question I could throw it to you. After all, it is the scary season after all. If you had a monkey's paw, what would be the 3 wishes you would ask for it? Don't maybe go the route of The Simpsons. You realize that those are really bad wishes. But what wishes would you ask for a monkey's paw? Let me know down below in the comments section. And certainly as well, if you enjoyed this video, hit it with a like. If you're loving the content you're seeing and want to stick around for more scary videos, then make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and turn on the bell notification. And while we have wrapped up right now the review of the Creepshow Creep from FigBiz, there's definitely going to be a lot more spooky spots coming your way during this month, the month that is Spottober. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.